DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, including you, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in a one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book. Yes, there is a book. You ain't got the book and the show. This daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is what to do when you are fresh out of ideas. What do you do when you do not know what to know? What do you think about when you don't even know what to think about? You're completely out of ideas. What can you do to help yourself? The reason why this topic is critical, because I've talked about ideas many episodes of this show. If you don't know, let's see. I told you ideas have no owners, only executors in Masterclass 1203. 897, ideas what to do when if you're not going to be an athlete. Any of you who came to me as athletes, but you realize maybe athletics is not going to be your future, what can you do about it? Ideas versus execution, because those are two different things. Masterclass number 192. Tells you how I produce ideas, masterclass number 140. Why to let your best ideas go in number 124. And I answered the question of how I generate so many content ideas back in masterclass number 170. And I told you just in 1479, not that long ago, how to get better at producing ideas. So I talk about ideas a lot because the idea muscle is an important muscle for times of challenge and need. Whenever you get into a position of you are being challenged, you're in a position of needing some output, you're needing some results, you need to figure some things out. The better you are at producing ideas, the better you'll be able to figure those things out, and the faster you'll be able to get yourself out of a position of peril or a position of challenge or a position of pressure, and you'll be able to handle things. Here's the thing about coming up with those ideas. The better you are at doing this habitually, coming up with ideas, the easier it will be for you to get out of a position of challenge or a position of discomfort when you actually need it. In other words, in times of peace, you need to be preparing for war. Now, in times of peace, get your idea muscle strong so that when you get into a challenge, you'll be able to deal with it immediately. You won't have to wonder or worry, all right, what the hell do I do now? All right, you'll already be in a position to do something right now. All right, when you need ingenuity, you don't want to be in a position of, all right, I have no idea what to do. Of building this muscle now, you'll be ready for when the war comes. Point number one, the topic once again, is what to do when you are completely out of ideas. Start combining, this is the first point, combine current and old ideas. Take old ideas, current ideas, wherever you have some ideas, and start putting them together. Say, what if I combine this one with this one? What if I combine episode number 1221 with episode number 835? What if I combine episode 40 with episode number 357? What if I combine episode 732 with episode 1505? I have never done this, but actually now that I'm saying it, maybe I'll start doing it. Start combining current and old ideas. James Altucher is a person, he calls this idea sex. He's an author, he has his own podcast as well. I like his show, so you can look James up. But he talks about this whole thing of idea sex. Idea sex is when you combine ideas. That's simply what it is. Two ideas combined, you produce a third idea. All right, this is a concept also known as synergy, that is written about in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is also something that's talked about when Napoleon Hill talks about, so he talks about the mastermind principle. When two minds come together, they produce a third mind. You notice how this principle, this through line principle, applies in all these different people's frameworks. James Altucher talks about getting better at ideas. He calls it idea sex. Napoleon Hill calls it the mastermind. Stephen Covey calls it synergy. Is all the exact same thing. What I'm calling it right here is coming up with ideas when you need ideas. Idea sex is where great ideas come from often. Often people who come up with these brand new ideas, they're not really brand new. All they're doing is taking some old things, putting them together, and they're creating a new thing. They just give it a new name, shine it up, slap a title on it, and people are like, oh wow, look at this brand new thing. This is also how people carve out their own niches. All right, you don't have to be number one in a common vertical, such as being a tennis player or a basketball player. You can create your own new vertical by combining stuff that is already there in such a way that it hasn't been combined before, give it a name that hasn't been used before, and boom, you are a brand new entity that now everybody can understand. So make sure when you combine ideas also that your combinations are not so radical that people don't quite get it. Your combination has to be something that people can understand, but at the same time also be new. All right, that's the zone of, Russell Brunson calls this the prolific zone, where you are combining things that people do understand, but at the same time, you're something that people haven't seen before. All right, that's a skill right there. That's a skill to finding that niche where, okay, you are something I haven't seen before, but you're not so radical that I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. You got what I'm saying there? Now that's something, if you were to take the time and put the thought into that, you can come up with some ideas, which is the whole topic here today, that can put you in a space that nobody is competition to you. But if you're trying to do what everybody else has already done, then you're too common. Now you're a commodity. But if you're trying to do something that nobody's ever done, but nobody can quite get it, then you're too far gone and nobody's really going to get it. Nobody's either going to get that either. So you don't want to be where everybody already gets it and nobody remembers it, but you also don't want to be where nobody gets it and nobody can quite understand it. You want to find that space somewhere in between where you are so prolific, like, oh, I get it, but I've also never seen or heard that before. That's interesting. That's where you want to be. When you get people to think that way about you, all right, now you found something. Now you actually got to be good at it. All right, that's the next step. That's why the show is called Work on Your Game. Point number 2. Today's topic is what to do when you are out of ideas. Steal from other disciplines or industries and use them in your discipline or industry. For example, this right here, what I'm about to give you here, point number 2, I'm telling you right now, those of you who are looking for some ideas for yourself, for your life, or your business, whatever you have going on currently, if you start thinking this way, I guarantee you, you may strike gold. You may strike serious gold right here. But all I ask for is a 10% of your earnings. All right, that's all I'm asking for. I'm joking, but maybe I'm not. All right, listen. What if a basketball player started training like a football player? What if a plumber marketed himself like a painter? What if a podcaster, or you run the podcast and you adopted the principles of Twitter? What if a furniture store starts selling your goods like a bakery? What if you just took the principles or the way that things work in one industry that is completely unrelated to your industry, and you started using their practices or their ideas or something you saw there? You said, what if I just use that in what I do? What if you are an independent novel writer? You write novels and you sell them on Kindle. That's what you do. Every month you got a new novel coming out and you've written 300 books. What if you started marketing your books the same way that Mercedes-Benz or Ferrari markets their cars? Now maybe you have never even thought of that combination, and neither have I. I just came up with that right here on the spot. What if you started doing that with your books? How could you separate yourself from the competition of all the other novel authors out there on Kindle? And there are thousands. I don't even read novels, but I noticed that novel writing is a even bigger industry than nonfiction writing. I didn't even know that until I started looking. I said, damn, these fiction writers are doing it even bigger than the people who write nonfiction. I thought nonfiction was way bigger. I was absolutely wrong. So what if you did that? All you writers out there. What if you're a basketball player and instead of training like a basketball player, you train like a boxer? What would happen? Now, I'm not saying necessarily you should do it, but hey, what would happen if you did? Maybe you would create a brand new niche. Maybe you create a brand new way of off-season training for basketball players that was called, I don't know, box ball. I don't know, train basketball players training like a boxer. You figure out the title for that. All right, that's your job. You're the marketer. Figure out the title for that and then start selling that to basketball players. Hey, how would you like to train like a boxer in order to make yourself better for your next basketball season? That's a business right there. That could be an entire business if you can get a couple players to do it and they get positive results and they start talking about it and you start marketing that the right way. You create a whole new industry for yourself. What if you just did that? What if you take whatever industry that you're in and then you take the marketing principles from someone else's industry and you start using it? What if you took the way that Walmart markets their products and you applied that to how you sell, I don't know, your cell phones? What if you applied that to how you sell your baked goods, your cookies? What if you're, as a bakery, you started selling your stuff? What if you are a furniture store, rather, you start selling your stuff the way a bakery does? Now, the thing about a bakery that I know is that they have to run out of product like every 2 days because depending on the quality of their baked goods, if they're not using preservatives and not using a lot of chemicals, all right, those goods can't last on the shelf forever. So after about a day or two, everything that they made got to be gone. So they have to be really precise when it comes to predicting how much product they're going to sell. And their goal usually on a day-to-day basis is they want to sell out. They want to run out of product before the end of the day. I remember I was driving and I was about to pass a certain bakery that's here in Miami called The Salty. They used to call themselves the Salty Donut. They changed the name to The Salty. And I was like, man, we about to pass it. It was about 6 o'clock. They didn't close till 7. it wasn't 6 o'clock. It was about 6:55. So I'm like, we're about to pass it. We might as well stop there since we're driving. Let's just see if there's anything in there. And Anna said, cool. And I figured that they'd probably be out of my favorite donut, which is the glaze. They usually run out of that every day. But when we got there, they told Anna that we already sold out. And I knew that would probably happen. But that's probably a good outcome for the Salty because they want to sell out. So what if you were a furniture store? Anyway, back to my point. You're a furniture store and you start selling your products the way that a bakery sells their product. Well, your goal is to be completely sold out every single day. What would happen? What would happen is probably the same thing that happens at a good bakery, a popular bakery, is that people are lining up early because they know that you sell out and they want to make sure they get some of your goods before you don't have any more. They want to make sure they get that specialty one that you're only putting out for 2 days and you know is going to sell out by lunchtime every day. People are going to be lining up just to get that one. They're going to be placing their orders early just so they're not the ones who miss out on it and are the ones who don't get it. So you can start doing your things like that. What if you sold your books like that? Like, look, I'm only printing up 40 copies of this book, and once they're gone, they're gone. The same way you do with a certain type of specialty dish, if you're a cook or a chef or a baker, something like that. What if you just took ideas from other disciplines, other industries, and used them in yours? What if you're an author who writes books and you started writing your books the same way that a photographer does photos? Follow what I'm saying here. When a photographer does photo shoots, every person who books that photographer for a shoot, what are they getting? They're getting photos of themselves. So what if you as an author, instead of just writing one book and selling it to as many people as possible, what if every person who bought a book from you, you wrote that book specifically for that person? You wrote an individually personalized book for each reader of your book. Now, again, these are ideas that I'm just coming up with really off the top because I'm sitting here right now and there's a book to my right, there's a camera out in front of me, and I'm just grabbing these ideas out of the air, and I got donuts over across from me, and I'm just grabbing these ideas out of the air. But this is because my idea muscle is so strong. I mean, what number episode are you listening to right now today? My idea muscle is strong because I'm always working it, and these are some ideas that I may actually use some of these myself. So when I listen back to this episode, listen, I'm gonna use some of these ideas. So y'all listening, you better take some of these ideas and run with them before I take them and run with them. If you beat me to it, then I'll shake your hand and congratulate you. But if I beat you to it, then the game is pretty much over. So the point here is point number 2, stealing ideas from other disciplines and other industries and using them in yours. Now, are they all gonna work out perfectly? Probably not, but we won't know until somebody executes on them, and maybe that somebody will be you. I just told you episode. See, I'm already conditioning myself. Episode number 40, ideas versus execution. Some people got ideas, some people execute on them. Some people got ideas and fewer people execute on ideas. Point number 3, today's topic is strengthening that idea muscle. The point is what to do when you're out of ideas. That's the topic, what to do when you're out of ideas. Number 3, do something wrong. I'm using do something, quote, wrong, close quote. So air quotes, do something wrong. The things that you have always been told not to do, the things that people have warned you would not work, things that would never work, things that are going to produce a terrible outcome. What if you just did them anyway? What would actually happen? People told you not to do that, but what if you did it? Let's see what happens. You ever watch the high jumping competition in the Olympics in track and field? When people do the high jump, what do? They run up to the bar, they approach it at a certain angle, and then they arch their back, and then they let their back go over the bar, and then they kind of curl their way backwards over the bar and just make sure they don't hit it, and then they land on that Big Mac, right? That is called the Fosbury flop. Now, you know the Fosbury flop, where'd that come from? If you think about it, it's obviously named after somebody. The guy was named Dick Fosbury. Now, what did Fosbury do? He was the first person to do it that way. It used to be, the high jump used to be, you would run up to it and you would just jump like straight up and down. Like, you know how when people jump over the hurdles in running or the steeplechase, you just jump as high as you can and just stay vertically and then you land on your feet. That's how people used to do the high jump. So when Dick Fosbury first did that jump that way, some people were like, what the hell is that? What are you doing? No, you can't do it that way. And people were angry at him. But eventually people accepted it because he broke the record. He set a new standard for doing the high jump. Now everybody does it that way. So what I'm encouraging you to do is take something that's seen as a faux pas, something that you're not supposed to do in your industry, and start doing it that way. What if you became an author? And I know for a fact on Kindle Direct Publishing, that's KDP self-publishing, the minimum length for a book, quote unquote, a book to be published on there is 24 pages. So if you can get a 24-page book And that's not talking digital books, that's talking physical books. So you want to print a physical book, it has to be a minimum of 24 pages. You can physically print a book. Now, if you wrote a 24-page book, I mean, how many 24-page books can you write? I could write a 24-page book in a day. All right, what if I just decided to write a book a day? You got people talking about reading a book a day. What if you took that concept, and see what I'm doing here? What if you took that concept of reading a book a day, or reading a book a week, whatever people are bragging about doing, these professional information gatherers. What if you took that concept and you started producing? What if you started making a book every day? What if you wrote a book every day for 365 days in a row? Where would your business or career be a year from now? We don't know. Somebody got to do it. Somebody's going to do it. Eventually, somebody's going to do that. Maybe somebody's already done it. I haven't heard of it there, so I'm going to do it. What if I did it? What if I wrote a business book every day? What if I wrote a motivational book every day? What if I took every episode of this show and just made it into a book? I just gave you an idea. I've already had that idea. I haven't done it yet because I only got 2 hands, but trust me, that's coming. So what I'm telling you is take something that is considered to be wrong. Well, you can't, it's not a book if it's not at least this many pages. Sometimes I've had my books, somebody will read one of my books. My book, The Super You, my book on confidence, is not that long of a book. And I've had people read it and say, oh, well, it's only whatever number of pages. That ain't even a book. And I'm like, well, how many pages is a book? Or what if you wrote an 800-page book like I did, Dre Philosophy Volume 0? Or how many people are actually going to read it? What if you wrote an 8-page book, a 10-page book, a 50-page book? What if you just wrote a whole bunch of them? What if you just started mass producing books out of your ideas? Do things that people consider to be wrong or not real or whatever they want to call it, illegitimate, and just start doing those things. Maybe it'll work out. Remember when basketball was played inside out? You're supposed to have a big guy throw the ball into the big guy. Everything starts on the inside, and then maybe you give it to the small guys later. What if we just start shooting 3-pointers and did it wrong? What would happen? Well, we've seen what happened, right? What if a 7-foot player, instead of playing down in the paint, what if they just start shooting threes and playing on the outside? What if they did that? What if, when all the big guys in basketball start shooting threes and playing on the perimeter, what if one guy said, you know what, forget that. I'm going to play on the inside and just dominate the paint. Somebody's going to come along and do that, and they're going to be dominant simply because there is no competition. Nobody else is doing it. So taking these ideas that are wrong, and if somebody flips the script and does the wrong thing and is successful, all you got to do is flip the script and go back and do the quote-unquote right thing. Now you have no competition. This is just the way that you can start thinking what they call outside of the box. So we're just completely ripping up the box. These are ways that you can start coming up with ideas. You don't have to be this evil genius coming up with brand new things out of nowhere. Look at what already exists and turn it around. Do the opposite. Do what nobody would ever do, what you've been told is the wrong thing, and see what comes from that. That's how you can come up with brand new ideas starting right now. Work on your game. Dre all day.